The plane shuddered. A violent jolt that sent my heart slamming against my ribs. I gripped the armrest, knuckles white, as the cabin lights flickered and the roar of turbulence drowned out the pilot's calm assurances. 30,000 feet above the Atlantic, I was trapped not just by the storm outside, but by the man sitting 3 rows ahead. His piercing gray eyes locked on me like a predator sizing up prey. His name was Luca Santoro, and he wasn't supposed to be here. 5 years ago, he'd marked May's scent. His touch, his claim burned into my soul under a moonlit sky in Chicago. Then he vanished, leaving me with nothing but whispers of his name tied to the city's darkest underworld. I'd rebuilt my life, piece by jagged piece, as Elias Kane, a freelance journalist chasing stories to drown out the ache. Now, on this private jet to a tech mobiles gala in New York, fate had thrown us together again, and the air between us crackled with danger and something far more intoxicating. I forced my gaze to the window, where clouds churned like my thoughts. The jet, a sleek Gulfstream owned by billionaire host Victor Crane, carried a handful of elite passengers tech CEOs, a senator, and, apparently, a Mafia alpha with a past he couldn't outrun. Luca's presence wasn't a coincidence. He never did anything by chance. I felt his stare, heavy and unrelenting, pulling me back to that night in the abandoned warehouse district, where his lips had grazed my neck, and his low growl had promised forever. Forever lasted 6 months. Elias. His voice cut through the hum of the engines. Smooth as velvet. Sharp as a blade. I didn't turn, but my pulse betrayed me, spiking at the sound of my name on his lips. You can't ignore me forever. I clenched my jaw, fingers digging into the leather seat. Watch me, I muttered, loud enough for him to hear. The other passengers, engrossed in their laptops or champagne, didn't notice the tension coiling tighter with every second. But I felt the weight of his claim, the mark that still thrummed beneath my skin, a bond I'd never fully shaken. Lucas stood, his tailored black suit hugging his broad frame, and moved toward me. Each step was deliberate, a hunter's stride. He stopped beside my seat, leaning down, his breath warm against my ear. You're still mine, he whispered, the words dripping with possession. You feel it, don't you? I whipped my head around, meeting his gaze. Those gray eyes, stormy and unyielding, hadn't changed. But I had. You lost that right when you disappeared. I hissed. What do you want? Luca, why are you here? His lips curved, a dangerous half-smile that sent a shiver down my spine. Business, he said, cryptic as ever. And you? Before I could snap back, the plane lurched again, harder this time. A scream tore through the cabin as luggage spilled from overhead bins. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Urgent now. Folks, we're hitting severe turbulence. Stay seated. Belts on. Luca didn't move, his hand gripping the back of my seat, steady as stone. We need to talk. Elias. Alone. Alone. I laughed bitterly, gesturing at the cabin. We're stuck in a metal tube with nowhere to go. You think now's the time for a heart-to-heart? His eyes darkened, and for a moment, I saw something flicker regret. Maybe. Or something softer. But it vanished as quickly as it came. You don't know what's at stake, he said, voice low. This isn't just about us. I opened my mouth to argue, but the jet dipped sharply, and a woman across the aisle gasped, clutching her pearls. Lucas straightened, glancing around, his demeanor shifting to something colder, more calculated. Later, he said, and returned to his seat, leaving me with a racing heart and questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. The next hour was chaos. The turbulence didn't let up, and the pilot announced we were diverting to a private airstrip in Virginia. I tried to focus on my notes for the gala, but Luca's presence was a distraction I couldn't shake. He'd marked me in Alpha's claim, a primal bond that tied us together, whether I wanted it or not. In our world, where alphas and omegas navigated a delicate balance of power and instinct, that mark was a chain. I'd spent years trying to break it, but one look from him, and it felt as strong as ever. As the plane descended, I caught snippets of conversation from the other passengers. The senator was muttering about a deal gone wrong, and a tech CEO was furiously texting, his face pale. Something was off, and Luca's cryptic words echoed in my mind. You don't know what's at stake. I glanced at him, and he was watching the others, his expression unreadable. Whatever he was involved in, it was bigger than our past. When we landed, the airstrip was a desolate stretch of concrete surrounded by dense forest. The pilot announced a delay, mechanical issues, he said, but his tone was cagey. We were ushered into a small, luxurious lounge inside a hangar, but the tension among the passengers was palpable. Luca lingered near the bar, pouring himself a whiskey, his eyes never leaving me. I approached him, unable to stay away any longer. What's going on? Luca, what's this business you're talking about? He took a slow sip, studying me. You're still fearless, he said, almost to himself. That's why he stopped, jaw tightening. There's a deal happening tonight, one that could change everything, and you're in the middle of it, whether you like it or not. Me? I scoffed. I'm just a journalist. I write stories, not live them. His gaze softened, just for a second. You were always more than that, Elias. Then his voice hardened. Stay close to me. You don't trust me. Fine. But trust this, you're not safe here. Before I could demand answers, the lounge door burst open, and two men in dark suits stormed in, their faces grim. One of them locked eyes with Luca, and I felt the air shift, thick with danger. Whatever Luca was hiding, it was about to unravel, and I was trapped in the storm with him. The hangar lounge was a gilded cage plush leather couches, a crystal chandelier, and a bar stocked with liquor that cost more than my rent. But the air was thick with suspicion, every glance between passengers laced with unspoken accusations. Lucas stood by the bar, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp, tracking the two men who'd just entered. They weren't security. Their suits were too expensive, their movements too predatory. I knew that lookmen like them had circled Luca's world 5 years ago, back when I thought love could conquer anything, even the Mafia. Elias, Luca murmured, his voice low enough to blend with the hum of the air conditioning. Stay behind me. I bristled, hating how his alpha instincts kicked in, like I was still his to protect. I can handle myself, I snapped, but I didn't move. Something about the way those men scanned the room made my skin crawl. The senator was whispering furiously to the tech CEO, who looked like he might bolt. The woman with the pearls was clutching her purse, her eyes darting to the exit. One of the suited men, a broad-shouldered guy with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. Santoro, he said, voice like gravel. We need to talk. Luca's jaw tightened, but he set his whiskey down with deliberate calm. Not here. Marco, he said. Not now. Marco's eyes flicked to me, and a slow, unsettling smile spread across his face. This the one. The Omega you marked and ditched. Gotta say, Luca, you've got a type trouble. My stomach twisted, but I held his gaze, refusing to flinch. Luca stepped between us, his body a wall of controlled fury. Leave him out of this, he growled, the alpha edge in his voice sending a shiver through me despite myself. The mark on my neck pulsed. A reminder of the bond one couldn't escape. Marco raised his hands, mocking surrender. Easy, boss. Just making conversation. But his partner, a lean man with cold eyes, was already moving toward the senator, who froze like a deer in headlights. What's going on? I whispered to Luca, my voice barely audible. He didn't look at me, his focus on the room. A deal, he said. One I tried to keep you out of. But you're too damn stubborn. Elias. Before I could press him, the lounge door opened again, and Victor Crane, the billionaire host, strode in. His polished charm was gone, replaced by a hard edge. Gentlemen, he said, addressing the room but looking at Luca. We have a problem. The cargo isn't secure. Cargo. My journalist instincts kicked into overdrive. I'd been invited to this gala to cover Crane's latest tech venture. But this felt like something else entirely. I glanced at Luca, whose expression was unreadable. But his hand brushed mine. A fleeting touch that sent sparks through me. Damn him. Cargo. I muttered, loud enough for him to hear. What the hell are you mixed up in? Later, he said, his voice tight. Just trust me. Trust you. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You left me. Luca. No note. No explanation. Just gone. And now you expect me to follow you blindly into whatever this is. His eyes met mine. And for a moment, the mask slipped. Pain flickered there, raw and unguarded. I didn't want to leave, he said, so quietly I almost missed it. I had no choice. Before I could process that, Marco's partner grabbed the senator by the arm, dragging him toward a side door. The senator yelped, and the room erupted into chaos. The woman with the pearls screamed, and the tech CEO bolted for the exit, only to be blocked by Marco. Luca moved faster than I could track, shoving me behind a couch and drawing a gun from beneath his jacket. Stay down, he ordered, his voice all alpha now, commanding and unyielding. I crouched, heart pounding, as shouts filled the room. The side door slammed open, revealing a third man taller, older, with a silver streak in his hair and an air of authority that made even Marco pause. Enough, he barked. Santoro, you're out of time. Luca's grip on the gun tightened, but he didn't lower it. Vito, he said, his voice steady but laced with something dangerous. You're early. Vito's eyes narrowed, and he gestured at me, still crouched behind the couch. Your Omega's a liability. Luca, you should have stayed away from him. I stood, ignoring Luca's warning glance. I'm not his Omega. I snapped, my voice shaking but defiant. And I'm not your pawn. Either. Vito's lips twitched, almost amused. Bold. But you're in over your head. Kid. He turned to Luca. The shipment's on this airstrip. You deliver, or we take what's yours. Starting with him. The threat hung in the air, and Luca's growl was low, primal, sending a jolt through my mark. I hated how it still affected me, how his protectiveness stirred something deep inside. But I wasn't the naive Omega I'd been 5 years ago. I'd survived without him, and I wasn't about to let Heimer or anyone control me now. Shipment, I said, stepping closer to Luca despite myself. What are they talking about? He didn't answer, his focus on Vito. But the senator, now pale and trembling, blurted out. It's Tech Crane's prototype. Military-grade AI. They're selling it too. Shut up. Marco snapped, backhanding the senator, who crumpled to the floor. My mind raced. A military AI prototype. That explained Crane's involvement. The secrecy. The private jet. And Luca was in the middle of it. The Mafia alpha who'd marked me and vanished was brokering a deal that could shift global power. And I was trapped in the crossfire. Luca lowered his gun, but his stance didn't soften. Vito, you want the prototype? You deal with me. Leave Elias out of it. Vito laughed, cold and sharp. You don't make the rules anymore. Santoro, you lost that when you ran. The words hit Luca like a blow, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to me, his eyes searching mine. Elias, I need you to listen. Whatever happens, stay with me. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but the urgency in his voice stopped me. The lounge was a powder keg, and we were seconds from ignition. I nodded, hating myself for it, and Luca's hand found mine, squeezing briefly before letting go. Let's move, Vito said, gesturing to the door. The buyer's waiting. As we were herded out of the lounge, Luca stayed close, his presence both a comfort and a reminder of everything I'd lost. The airstrip stretched out before us, dark and endless, and I knew whatever came next would test every ounce of strength I had. The Virginia night was cold, the wind slicing through my thin jacket as we were marched across the airstrip. Floodlights cast harsh shadows, illuminating a black SUV parked near a cargo plane. Luca walked beside me, his hand brushing mine every few steps. A silent reassurance that felt both familiar and infuriating. I wanted to shove him away, to demand why he'd abandoned me. But the guns in the hands of Vito's men kept my focus on survival. The senator stumbled ahead of us, his bravado gone, while the tech CEO muttered nervously, clutching a briefcase like it was his lifeline. Victor Crane walked with Vito, their heads bent in hushed conversation, and I caught fragments words like encryption and delivery. The prototype, whatever it was the key to this mess, and Luca was neck-deep in it. We stopped near the cargo plane, its ramp lowered, revealing crates stacked inside. Vito turned to Luca, his expression all business. The buyer's on their way. You verify the prototype. Santoro. No games. Luca nodded, but his eyes flicked to me, a warning in their depths. Stay close, he murmured, then moved toward the crates. His movements precise, like he'd done this 100 times. I followed, ignoring Marco's smirk, my journalist instincts screaming to uncover the truth. Inside the plane, Luca pried open a crate, revealing a sleek device no bigger than a laptop, its surface etched with circuits that glowed faintly. This is it, he said, his voice low. Crane's AI. It can hack any system, control any network. Governments would kill for this. I stared at him, my heart sinking. And you're selling it to the highest bidder. What happened to you? Luca. The man I knew wouldn't. The man you knew didn't have a choice. He cut in, his voice raw. You think I wanted this? I left to protect you. Elias. The market made you a target. I thought if I disappeared, they'd leave you alone. His words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. Protect me, I whispered, anger and hurt colliding. You broke me. Luca. You left me to pick up the pieces while you played Mafia kingpin. He reached for me, but I stepped back, the mark on my neck burning. I was in too deep, he said, his voice cracking. Vito's family, they don't let you walk away. I marked you because I loved you, but it put a bullseye on your back. Leaving was the only way to keep you safe. I wanted to scream, to tell him he was wrong, but the pain in his eyes stopped me. Before I could respond, headlights cut through the darkness, and a convoy of black cars roared onto the airstrip. The buyer. Vito's men tensed, weapons ready, as a tall woman in a tailored coat stepped out of the lead car. Her presence was commanding, her accent Eastern European. Santoro, she said, her voice like ice. You have what I paid for. Luca nodded, gesturing to the crate. It's here, Irina. But I want assurances. This tech doesn't end up in the wrong hands. Irina laughed, sharp and humorless. You don't dictate terms. Alpha. Deliver. Or your Omega pays the price. My blood ran cold. But Luca's growl was feral, his body shifting to shield me. Touch him, and this deal's off. The tension snapped like a taut wire. Marco lunged, grabbing my arm and yanking me toward Irina. I fought, landing a solid kick to his shin. But he was stronger, dragging me across the tarmac. Luca roared, tackling Marco, and chaos erupted. Gunfire. Shouts. The screech of tires as the senator and CEO scrambled for cover. I broke free, diving behind a crate, my heart pounding. Luca was a blur, disarming Marco with brutal efficiency. But Vito's men were closing in. I scanned the plane, spotting a crowbar near the crates. Without thinking, I grabbed it, swinging it at the nearest thug. He went down, clutching his knee, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. Elias. Luca's voice cut through the chaos, urgent and fierce. He was pinned by two men, blood trickling from a cut on his brow. I ran to him, swinging the crowbar again, giving him the opening he needed to break free. We stood back to back, surrounded, his scent grounding me despite the fear. We need to get out of here, I panted, scanning for an escape. The plane, Lucas said, nodding toward the cockpit. If we can lock ourselves in, we've got a chance. We bolted, dodging bullets, and scrambled up the ramp. Luca slammed the cockpit door shut, barricading it with a crate. The pilot was gone, probably bribed, or worse, but Luca slid into the seat, his hands moving over the controls with a confidence that stunned me. You know how to fly? I asked, incredulous. Learned a few things in 5 years, he said, flashing a grim smile. The engines roared to life, and the plane lurched forward, tires screeching as Vito's men fired at the hull. I gripped the co-pilot's seat, my mind racing. Where are we going? Away, he said, his focus on the controls. Somewhere they can't touch you. As the plane lifted off, the airstrip shrinking below, I looked at him, bloodied, determined. The man who'd broken my heart and was now risking everything to save me. The mark pulsed, a reminder of the bond we couldn't outrun, and I wondered if I'd ever truly wanted to. The plane climbed into the night, the stars a cold, distant witness to the chaos we'd left behind. Luca's hands were steady on the controls, but his jaw was tight, blood still dripping from the cut on his brow. I sat in the co-pilot's seat, my heart a tangled mess of fear, anger, and something I didn't want to name. The mark on my neck thrummed, a constant reminder of the bond that had pulled us back together. 30,000 feet in the air, with nowhere to hide. Where are we going? I asked again, my voice steadier now, though my hands still shook. Montana, Lucas said, not looking at me. A safe house. Off the grid. Vito won't find us there. Us. I scoffed, crossing my arms. There's no us. Luca, you made that clear when you vanished. He flinched, just enough for me to notice, and turned to me, his gray eyes raw with something I hadn't seen in years: vulnerability. I never stopped loving you, Elias. Every day I was gone, I felt you. The market's not just a claim. It's a piece of me, tethered to you. His words cracked something inside me, but I pushed it down. Love doesn't disappear without a word. You left me to face the world alone, marked and hunted. Do you know what that did to me? He looked away, his hands tightening on the controls. I know, he said, voice low, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. But right now, we need to survive. The plane leveled out. The hum of the engine's a steady pulse. I leaned back, exhaustion settling in, and let my eyes drift to the stars outside. The prototype was still in the cargo hold, a ticking bomb that could bring governments to their knees. Luca had risked everything to keep it and me out of Vito's hands. But why? What had changed in 5 years to pull him back into my life? Tell me the truth, I said, breaking the silence. Why now? Why this deal? This plane? This? Everything? Luca exhaled, his shoulders sagging. Vito's family been bleeding Chicago dry. Drugs. Weapons. Now tech like this AI. I was their enforcer. Elias. I did things I'm not proud of. But when I met you, I wanted out. I marked you because I thought I could protect you, build a life with you. But Vito found out, and he threatened you to keep me in line. My breath caught, the pieces falling into place. So you left to protect me? He nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. I went underground, worked to dismantle their network from the inside. This Deal Crane's prototype was my way out. Deliver it to Irina, take the money, and disappear for good. But then I saw you on the jet. And what? I pressed, my voice sharp. And I couldn't let you go again, he said, turning to me. Not without fighting for you. The air between us thickened, the mark pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I wanted to hate him, to hold on to the pain of his absence. But his words stirred something deeper, a longing I'd buried long ago. I reached out, touching the cut on his brow, my fingers trembling. He froze, his breath hitching, and for a moment, we were back in that Chicago warehouse, young and reckless, believing love could conquer anything. The plane's radio crackled, shattering the moment. Unidentified aircraft. This is FAA control. Identify yourself and state your destination. Luca cursed under his breath, switching on the mic. This is Gulfstream N-472, heading to a private airstrip in Montana. Mechanical issues diverted us from New York. The voice on the other end was skeptical. Stand by. We're tracking your flight path. You're not cleared for that route. I glanced at Luca, panic rising. They're on to us. Not yet, he said, but his voice was tight. He adjusted the controls, banking the plane slightly. We're off radar for now, but Vito's got connections. We need to land soon. The next hour was a blur of tension. Luca navigating by instinct and skill, dodging FAA queries with half-truths. I watched him, torn between admiration and resentment. He'd built a life without me, become someone who could fly a plane and broker deals with criminals. Yet he was still the man who'd marked me, who'd promised forever under a Chicago moon. As we descended toward a remote airstrip nestled in Montana's mountains, Luca reached for my hand, his touch warm and steady. Elias, he said, his voice soft but urgent. Whatever happens, I'm not leaving you again. Not unless you tell me to. I looked at him, the weight of 5 years between us, and felt the mark burn. A reminder of what we'd been and what we could still be. I don't know if I can trust you, I said, my voice breaking. But I'm here. For now. He nodded. Millions of stars in the sky. But they couldn't stop us now. The plane touched down, the safe house a dark silhouette against the snowy peaks. We stepped onto the tarmac, the prototype crate between us. And I knew this wasn't the end. Vito would come for us. For the tech. For revenge. But as Luca's hand found mine again, strong and sure, I felt a spark of hope. We were trapped together, not just by circumstance, but by a bond that had survived time, betrayal, and 30,000 feet of sky. The safe house was a small cabin, stocked with supplies and hidden from the world. As we settled in, the weight of the prototype and our past hung heavy. Luca lit a fire, the flames casting shadows on his face. And I saw the man I'd loved, scarred but unbroken. "We'll figure this out," he said, his voice steady. "The AI. Vito. Us. Together." I didn't know if I could forgive him, but I knew I couldn't walk away. Not yet. The mark pulsed, a promise and a challenge. And as the Montana night closed in, I realized some traps were worth staying in.